every bad financial decision you have ever made. There is a good chance fear was in the room. Not greed, not laziness, not stupidity. Fear. Fear dressed up as caution. Fear wearing the costume of being responsible. Fear that felt so reasonable in the moment that you called it common sense and moved on. And here is the thing about financial fear: it does not just stop you from doing things, it actively makes you do the wrong things. It makes smart people keep their savings in cash while inflation quietly eats it. It makes capable earners stay in underpaying jobs because asking for more feels terrifying. It makes people who know they should invest leave money sitting idle for years because the thought of losing it is more vivid than the reality of what it could become. Fear is the most expensive financial force most people never account for. And this video is about exactly how it works and how to stop paying for it. Let me tell you about two people. Same age, same income, same starting point. The first one is Elena. Elena is 28. She grew up watching her family go through a period of genuine financial hardship when she was a teenager. She remembers the stress, the arguments, the uncertainty. She promised herself she would never be in that position, so she is careful, very careful. She keeps all her savings in a standard savings account, currently earning about 1.5% annually, because the thought of putting it anywhere that could go down makes her physically uncomfortable. She has been offered a promotion twice in the last 2 years. Both times, she has found reasons not to pursue it. The hours might change. The responsibility might be too much. What if she fails at the higher level? She stays where she is because where she is feels safe. She has never negotiated her salary, never asked for a raise. The idea of that conversation triggers something close to dread. She knows about index funds. She has watched videos about them. She has had the tab open. She has never clicked buy. Elena is not careless with money. She is terrified of it. And that terror, which began as a completely understandable response to real childhood experience, has calcified into a set of financial behaviors that are costing her more than any recklessness ever would. The second person is Marcus. Marcus has a different kind of fear. His fear is not of losing, his fear is of missing out. Every time a new investment trend appears, crypto, a hot stock, a new platform promising returns, Marcus moves fast before he fully understands what he is buying, because the fear of being left behind, of watching others get rich while he stays still, overrides every rational consideration. He has lost money 3 times in 4 years, not from bad luck, but from decisions made in a state of fear-driven urgency. Both Elena and Marcus are making fear-based financial decisions. One is frozen. One is frantic. Both are losing. To understand how fear hijacks financial decisions, you need to understand one simple thing about how the human brain processes threat. When your brain perceives danger, financial or physical, it activates a response system designed for survival. Heart rate increases. Focus narrows. The thinking part of your brain partially disengages, and the reactive part takes over. This system is extraordinary for genuine emergencies. If you need to react quickly to a physical threat, it saves your life. In financial situations, it almost always makes things worse, because financial decisions benefit from exactly the opposite of what fear produces. They benefit from slow thinking, wide perspective, consideration of long-term outcomes, calm weighing of probabilities. Fear produces fast thinking, narrow perspective, focus on the immediate threat, urgency that does not match the actual situation. And here is what makes financial fear particularly insidious. It does not feel like fear most of the time. It feels like caution, like responsibility, like not being naive, like learning from experience. Elena does not say, I am too scared to invest. She says, I just want to be careful. I do not want to risk what I have worked hard for. I will start when I understand it better. That sounds reasonable. It sounds wise. But underneath the reasonable language is a fear response that has been running for 15 years and costing her compound growth for every one of them. Marcus does not say, I am terrified of being left behind. He says, I spotted an opportunity. I did not want to miss the window. I moved quickly. That sounds decisive. It sounds confident. But underneath it is a fear response, just pointing in a different direction. Fear of loss produces paralysis. Fear of missing out produces recklessness. Both destroy financial outcomes. Both feel like something other than fear from the inside. Let me show you what they cost in real numbers. Elena's cost? The paralysis price. Elena is 28. She has $18,000 in savings, earning 1.5% annually in a standard savings account. Inflation in her country is running at approximately 2.5 to 3%. In real terms, her savings are losing purchasing power every year. At 2.5% inflation and 1.5% return, she loses approximately 1% of real value annually. On $18,000, that is $180 a year in real purchasing power. Not visible on a statement, just quietly happening. But the larger cost is the opportunity cost of not investing. $18,000 in a globally diversified index fund at a historical average of 7 to 8% annual return over 30 years, assuming she adds nothing, grows to approximately $180,000 to $200,000. In her savings account at 1.5% over 30 years, it grows to approximately $28,000. The gap between those two outcomes, driven entirely by fear of investing, is approximately $150,000 to $170,000. Her fear did not protect her savings. Her fear cost her $150,000. Add the salary she never negotiated. Conservative estimate. She has left $8,000 to $15,000 on the table over 5 years of not asking for raises she was eligible for. Add the promotions she declined. 2 career acceleration opportunities she passed on because the risk felt too high. Elena has paid for her fear many times over. Marcus's cost, the urgency price. Marcus has moved money into 3 investments he did not fully understand because the fear of missing out overrode his judgment. First investment, a highly marketed crypto token at peak attention. Lost 60% before he sold. Cost, $2,400 on a $4,000 stake. Second, a single company stock he bought after a social media recommendation during a period of hype. Company underperformed. He sold after 8 months at a 35% loss. Cost, $1,050 on a $3,000 stake. Third, a high-fee, actively managed fund promoted as having exceptional recent performance, MER, of 2.1%. Underperformed the index it was benchmarked against for 3 consecutive years. Opportunity cost versus a low-cost index fund over 3 years. Approximately $1,800. Total cost of fear-based urgency. Approximately $5,250 in direct losses plus opportunity costs. Elena and Marcus have opposite fears. Identical outcome. Both paid significantly for decisions made from a fear state rather than a clarity state. Here is how to identify fear in your financial decisions and what to do when you find it. Step 1. Learn to recognize the fear signatures in your financial language. Fear of loss sounds like, I just want to wait until things are more certain. I want to understand it fully before I do anything. I cannot afford to lose this money. I will start when the timing is better. Fear of missing out sounds like, everyone is doing this. I need to move before the window closes. I cannot afford to wait. I do not want to be the last person to get in. When you hear yourself saying any of these, pause. Not because the thought is necessarily wrong, but because it is a signal that fear may be driving the decision rather than information. Fear-driven decisions need a holding period before action. Clarity-driven decisions do not. Step 2. Install a decision delay for anything fear-flavored. For any financial decision that carries the signature of either fear type, create a mandatory waiting period before acting. For fear of loss, paralysis, set a start date rather than a decision date. Not, I will decide whether to invest. Instead, I will invest $100 on the 1st of next month. Small, specific, dated. The decision is made now. The fear has a deadline. For fear of missing out urgency, implement a minimum 72-hour rule before any investment not on your pre-existing plan. If the opportunity is genuine, it will still be there in 3 days. If it disappears in 3 days, that urgency was a red flag, not a feature. Most of the decisions Marcus regretted were made within 24 hours of first hearing about the opportunity. The 72-hour rule alone would have saved him most of his losses. Step 3. Separate the fear from the fact. For every financial decision where fear is present, write down 2 things on a piece of paper. What am I afraid will happen? What does the evidence actually suggest will happen? Elena's fear: I will lose my savings if I invest. The evidence: globally diversified index funds have never produced a zero return over any 15-year period in recorded market history. Drawdowns happen. Total loss of a diversified index fund has never happened. Her fear is vivid and specific. The evidence is broad and historical. Both are real, but they are not equal. Writing them side by side, not dismissing the fear, just placing it next to the evidence, changes the texture of the decision from emotional to informed. Step 4. Address the root when the fear is disproportionate. Sometimes financial fear is not about the financial decision in front of you. It is about a financial experience behind you. Elena's fear of investing is rooted in watching her family's financial hardship as a teenager. The fear is a protective response to a real past experience, not an accurate assessment of the specific investment in front of her. When financial fear feels disproportionately strong, when it is blocking decisions that evidence suggests are reasonable, it is worth asking honestly where it came from. Not to psychoanalyze yourself, to separate the past experience from the present decision. The past experience was real. The lesson from it may have been accurate at the time, but the same lesson applied indefinitely to every financial decision, regardless of context. That is not wisdom. That is the past running the present. You are allowed to update your understanding based on new information. That is not betraying the lesson. That is graduating from it. Step 5. Build confidence through small, reversible actions. The most effective antidote to financial fear is positive evidence gathered through experience. Elena will not stop being afraid of investing by reading more about it. She will stop being afraid of investing by investing, starting so small that the fear cannot justify stopping her. $50 into a broadly diversified index fund in a tax-advantaged account, set to reinvest automatically. Not because $50 will change her financial situation, because watching $50 behave exactly the way the evidence said it would, growing slowly, dipping occasionally, recovering, continuing, replaces the vivid imagined catastrophe with lived reality. And lived reality is the only thing that actually updates a fear response. Start so small that the fear has no justification for stopping you. Then let experience do what information cannot. Here is the reframe. Most people think financial fear is protective. That caution and risk aversion keep you safe. That being careful with money means being afraid of losing it. But financial fear is not the same as financial prudence. Prudence is making decisions based on evidence, risk assessment, and long-term outcomes. Fear is making decisions based on worst-case scenarios, past experiences, and the emotional discomfort of uncertainty. They can look identical from the outside. They produce completely different results over time. The person who does not invest because they have genuinely assessed the risk, have no long-term horizon, and need the liquidity. That is prudence. The person who does not invest because the thought of a market dip makes them feel sick, even though their timeline is 30 years and they have a stable emergency fund. That is fear dressed as prudence. And it costs the same whether it is called fear or caution. Elena is not being careful. She is being expensive. The goal is not to stop being cautious. The goal is to make sure your caution is based on the actual situation in front of you, not the loudest fear in the room. Fear has been making financial decisions for you, maybe for years, maybe in ways so quiet and so reasonable sounding that you never noticed it was fear at all. The salary you never negotiated because the conversation felt too risky. The investment account you never opened because the thought of losing was more vivid than the reality of compounding. The opportunity you declined because staying still felt safer than moving forward. The urgent purchase you made because the fear of missing out was louder than your judgment. Every one of those decisions had a cost. Not because you made a mistake, because fear was the decision maker. And fear optimizes for avoiding pain, not for building your life. You can take fear out of the chair, not by eliminating it. Fear does not disappear. It is part of being human, but by recognizing it, naming it, installing a delay before it becomes a decision, separating the vivid catastrophe it imagines from the evidence that actually exists, and by starting so small that fear has no justification for stopping you. $50 in an index fund, one email asking about the raise, one financial decision made from clarity rather than from the loudest feeling in the room. That is how you start taking the chair back. And every decision you make from clarity, instead of from fear, is money that finally works for you instead of against you. Drop a comment and tell me honestly, which type of financial fear shows up more in your life? The paralysis that keeps you from starting, or the urgency that makes you move too fast? Tell me which one and where it shows up specifically. I read every comment, and I will tell you the one thing I would address first. If this video described the invisible force behind decisions you have been making, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because most people fight their finances when they should be fighting their fear. Subscribe to Nuella Invests. Every week, we talk about the forces that actually drive financial behavior, not just the numbers, the whole picture. See you in the next one.